That's why ego is such an interesting thing when it comes to things, especially for men, in my opinion, because we're told since we're young that's what you do. That's exactly what you do is you
Mhm.
provide, you make the most money that you can to give your family the best life you can. You work your ass off
Yep.
more than anybody else works, and then the interesting part is what happens when a man starts to accomplish those things and how that then turns into their identity is, and you can see it through that last caller where his wife is wanting more of his attention rather than all of the things he's able to provide. And now as a man he has to go back and recalibrate that entire system of beliefs that he's had in his head his entire life, and that is the journey that
Yeah.
we're all in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I know I had to recalibrate a few times
Yeah,
in my marriage. I mean, but we've been married for pushing 30 years, dude. So,
congratulations.
but there's been a lot of times where I can remember being in fights where I'm just like, don't you see what I've done? Like my
Yeah,
job has got us this house or this sort of stuff. And it's just, those are things. But when you're wired to think that that's the only thing,
yeah.
then sometimes you like the, the best thing I ever did was learning to listen, to learn to go, okay, I don't have all, we're men, we're fixers. That's what
Hmm.
we do. We just got to fix it, man. We just got to get in there. We got to jump in and go, hey, I see what you're doing, but you're doing it wrong and blah, blah, blah. And this is how you fix it. And this is how you fix it. We are fixers by nature. Women are more nurturing, higher emotional IQ, all of that stuff. So you can't just fix it in a 2 minute conversation. Sometimes you just got to listen and let it be what it's going to be. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say, and and you can, like, for that last caller, you can see how your own ego could destroy you by seeing the same decisions that she's making, where she's saying she values her independence and she wants to be able to have more independence and not be so, constrained by the circumstances. Well, again, that's an ego thing.
Yeah.
And if you could see, like, the trick for me is being able to see how what somebody else is doing is exactly what that version of you would be doing if you were them,
Mhm.
based on what the ego is. And then you could sit there and you could see that that's how she's feeling, and then you could tackle it by saying, well, if that's what you feel, then what does that look like? What does that control look like in your mind? Like, what is that picture? And let's talk about that, because if we can talk about it, I'm sure we can come to some type of middle ground.
Yeah. And giving her a space to talk.
That's a big deal. I didn't realize how much of a big deal that was until the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to give her even like again as men we just want to jump in, we want to
Hmm.
interrupt, we want to be like yeah, but
Hmm.
but you just have to shut up.
So hard to do,
Yeah, it is hard. It's really hard.
especially when you love somebody and you're like, I can see in my mind how if you would just do this one thing,
Yeah,
everything would be perfect.
yeah,
So just do it. They won't. You're like, why?
right. Yeah, and boy, that ends well.
Yeah, no. Oh God, dude.
So, one of the other things that happened, not with Alex from the last break, but before that, was the guy, and this is a thread I want to pull at. By the way, our phone number is 1-800-771-1025. We give really, really bad marriage advice. So, but we give you space to listen and we don't judge you.
Damn right.
Is what to do in a relationship, marriage, etc., where there's a strong difference of viewpoints or opinions. So on the lighter side is like, well, my husband's a fan of the Florida Gators and I'm an FSU fan. That's weak. But when it's like, hey, the world is crumbling and you're ignorant, like,
Hmm.
how do you like? That's an interesting thing. I had to navigate that in my relationship, very different. But my wife was like, I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget when we found out we were pregnant with our first kid. We were living in Las Vegas at the time. I worked for a radio station, and it was owned by CBS. And I had really good insurance. I had really, really good insurance. So I remember like thinking in my mind, I was like, all right, well, this is going to be easy. Like, I got insurance, we'll be able to go to the hospital, have a baby, that sort of thing. I remember coming home that day. And before I could say any of that, she was like, we're having this baby at home. There'll be no nurses, no doctors. I'm going to have a baby in the bathtub.
Oh no.
I was like, what are you, are you high? What are you talking about? And that began our journey of living a very different lifestyle. And I fought her on it. I was like, like if we go try to do this on our own, that's like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Where I've got insurance, we pay like $150 and a baby comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, nope, I'm staying out of hospitals. We're getting away from that. And we're going to have a baby at home with a midwife. At the end of the day, she won that because we had both of our kids at home. But it opened my eyes to another way of thinking about all sorts of things. So I'll come back to like that caller a couple of, you that happens in relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be spirituality, it could be God, it could be politics, like that's a real thing when there is a fundamental difference between two people. My own path through that is I tried my best, failing many, many times, to keep an open mind. The byproduct of that is now 30 years later, I love my viewpoint. And
Yeah.
a lot of and I give Tanya so much credit for this, is that she opened my mind to alternative ways of everything from having a kid to how we prepare meals to everything. And now I'm just like, and I'm in it, man. Now where it's like every conversation is just like, yeah,
Right.
who was on that plane that crashed?
Mm-hmm.
What do they do? Like everything is a conspiracy theory, not because everything is a conspiracy theory, but everything is worth questioning.
Absolutely.
Everything is worth questioning. So, I mean, that's the dynamic in the Sharkey household. But there was a time where there was a lot of conflict between, she sees it one way, I see it another way. What do you do? Like that's a real thing in so many relationships, fundamental core beliefs that are like opposing. How do you navigate that?
It's to me, it seems very simple. Um, and I can only say that because of everything I've gone through in the past couple of years, and that is the symbolism of what the universe is. That's in that whole story about you and your wife is so beautiful. Of Imagine what your life would be if you decided to give into your ego and fight her on that, and that would have been the end of that relationship,
Yep.
and where you would be, who you'd be with, what your life would look like now if right now you were just starting to question things and move into spirituality as opposed to 20 years ago, 30 years ago. The viewpoint that you've been given now, because you decided to put that aside and allow yourself to open to the gifts of the universe, is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to allow yourself to accept them so that you can now have this new viewpoint. And that's happening all the time in our lives, all the time with almost everything that you disagree with. It's an opportunity to see things from a new vantage point, not in a way that's going to change your world or change your beliefs, but in a way where now you can sit in front of new people that don't have that same viewpoint. And instead of immediately judging them and coming at them from a place of anger, you can go, okay, well, I can understand and I can accept what you're saying. And I think that between the two of us, if we work together to move forward, man, could we see some really cool stuff?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so crazy. Literally this morning, we go to the Saturday morning market every Saturday morning. But like there was a situation this morning where Tanya was talking with one of the local vendors that we know. And we were telling her that we're going to Mexico later this year. So that person heard Tanya say, we're going to Mexico later this year. That person immediately said, I bet you're going because of the new administration, right? You're getting out of this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tanya was like, no, that actually has nothing to do with it. We actually just like Mexico, and we have a place in Oaxaca where we can hike through forests and stuff like that. It has nothing to do with being pushed by a decision of who's president or anything like that. But instead of it turning into a conflict, Tanya did exactly what you just said. It was like, well, let me not try to change your opinion. I'm not here to do that. But maybe there's another way to look at this. Maybe what's happening in our world right now is just a simple manifestation of the things that we need. Maybe there's a conflict here that we need. Maybe there's something else happening here. We're still just choosing to live our own life the way we choose to live it. And we survived the last administration and we survived Trump and all those things, if you want to capsulize that. But maybe there's just a simpler, more loving way to look at the state of the world right now.
Yeah.
And what was so funny is that this particular person just didn't know what to do with that.
Of course not.
Because she was so expecting someone to go, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mexico because of Trump.
People don't realize how much they show you about themselves on a regular basis. And when you can start to see it and use it like your wife did in that situation, where you hear somebody say something and you go, oh, okay, that's coming from a place of pure fear and a place of you are the type of person, and there's nothing wrong with this type of person, because we need both types. We need all types of people.
Yeah.
And that is okay. So you're the type of person that is able to see a situation and immediately make it personal and not really have all the facts, but just have not enough facts to make it a real emotional thing for you. And so, with that being said, I now know how to navigate this way better than I would have if I didn't see that, and I can give you some love in the middle of this conversation because I know you need it because you're scared, and there's nothing wrong with being scared.